love his message. I love Peter, and I'm so glad that he shared with us tonight. And we're going to go ahead and bring him up and thank Peter.
It's like my last marriage, wobbly. My name is Peter. I'm a recovered alcoholic.
Peter.
I'm grateful to be alive and sober and part of a sacred place called Alcoholics Anonymous. And first things first, thank the group, Chris, for having me here, a kind invitation to me to get to share with you what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. What my current experience is with this power called God, and how it has revolutionized my life, and I keep getting to recreate my life in the sacred rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. A loving God separated me from alcohol on June 23rd, 1988. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I say recovered because I am, and anything less than that would be falsely humble. So we get to talk about what it's like getting recovered and experiencing in the day-at-a-time process permanent recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've found out so many times we settle for recovering, ing, rather than recovered, ed. Recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And recovered from the things that accompany alcoholism, even though I'm separated from alcohol. Because I can be in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and still be completely untreated and look like a drunk without a drink in me. And something happens to me, something happens to us as a result of going through the 12 steps with the sponsor. And we get taken to our own place, different places, but they all look alike. It's called God. Entering the world of the Spirit and experiencing the fellowship of the Spirit and the Spirit of this sacred fellowship. And that there's so much more I had to find out the hard way besides just going to AA meetings. This is sacred. And if you haven't found out that the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is sacred, I pray you stick around long enough to find out the sacredness of Alcoholics Anonymous and treat it as such. Because each and every day we see lives getting reborn and resurrected in Alcoholics Anonymous. Based on my track record, you're supposed to have a different speaker here tonight. But God, in His infinite mercy, took me from the scrap heap, or literally from the streets of Lower Manhattan, being homeless, to where I am tonight with dignity, some integrity, a little bit of grace, and spiritually fit, upright, shoulders squared, head up. And a recovered member of a fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous, and an upstanding member of this fellowship, because it's my only life. I don't have any other life outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous takes me to God, and it gives me a life outside of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I don't design any of that. And for the newcomers, I know this sounds awfully lame. I don't have a life. The old-timers know what I'm talking about. If people have been through this work, and I'm talking, my life belongs to God and Alcoholics Anonymous, and because of that, He gives me things to do, like get here tonight, go to work on Monday, have a relationship. I get to do things in Alcoholics Anonymous. I get to. Everything's a get to in AA. I get to go to meetings, get to have a sponsor, get to go to the doctor, get to have a relationship, get to leave a relationship, get to go to work, get to find a new job. Because the alternative for me was to drink and back to the streets and eventually die. And before I die, I would suffer the humiliation, degradation that we all experience on the way in here. So I'm very grateful to be here. My life, for the most part, is one of mindfulness. For the most part, is one of presence. And it's always one of prayer and meditation. And I have found out that prayer has got to be the most important event of my life. And everything else is a distant second, whatever it might be. Prayer is the most important event in my day. And so I go into prayer 3 times a day, and I sit in meditation 3 times a day, and I surrender to my Heavenly Father and ask Him to what I'm supposed to do. And sometimes it's absolutely nothing. Sometimes I'm waiting, I give a question, I'm waiting for the answer, and the answer is another question. And sometimes I'm getting suspended from life itself and my way of looking at things and trying to figure out life with my thinking mind, and God won't give me that. It's a wait and see. Listen for the teachers, listen for the message, and dive deeper into God. But prayer is the most important event in my life, and it isn't in yours. How come? What is so more important than establishing each and every day my relationship with God? I got drunk every day. That was the most important event of the day. Honey, I'm about to give birth. I know, I'll be right back. Need a couple of drinks. or start a fight with him or her to go get down to the bar. That's the most important event in my life. Any of you druggies out there, you know the powder or the rock comes first before we do anything. It's the most important event of the day. And we come into Alcoholics Anonymous, we do a lot of things, and we pray. Pray in the car, driving to work. This I like to see, how we pray and drive at the same time. How much time am I giving to my Heavenly Father who gives me this life back? So I'm grateful for mindfulness. I'm grateful for prayer, meditation, and presence. I like to be all in. I like to be with the journeymen and women, the folks who are all in that this is it, and everything else comes second. There's no other thing more important than recovery. Because if there is, I'm going to lose anything. Anything I put before God, I'm going to lose. And when I surrender to God, as I have, and I go through these 12 steps, all my identities that I went into prayer with begin to die. And the only thing I'm left with is standing in the raw before my Creator with what He created at the beginning. By the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and in Alcoholics Anonymous, I assumed these little identities. I had the AA guru guy, I had the boyfriend guy, then I had the husband guy, then I had the worker guy, and I was tied up into every one of those roles, and the 12 steps removed everything. The great thing about the 12 steps, we stand naked before our Creator, but that doesn't feel good. But it's necessary. The process of recovery is about removal, never addition. That doesn't feel good, and the ego gets grinded into dust. At the end of the day, when we walk into the sunlight of the Spirit, we stand before our Creator with our Creator. We pray with our Creator. There's nothing else other than our Creator, which is what our book talks about, walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. No more two-ness, no more duality, but oneness. Us and God. When that starts to happen, I start to recognize the God in you. And if I'm angry with you, it means there's something wrong with me. If you did something that upsets me, it's my perceptions and conceptions. I just finished working through this on one individual. And I had to speak to someone about this, write my inventory, and find out it's something within me, and more prayer, more forgiveness is needed. And I get to see the Spirit in them. You get to see it in me. And we're no more warring theologians anymore in AA or out there, because it's really about practicing these principles out there. I'm grateful for who I've been brought to. June 23rd, 1980 is when God separated me from alcohol. My separation from alcohol was not a fun one. My separation from alcohol was a violent one. It was ugly, and I didn't plan on it. I didn't say, well, tomorrow I'm going to quit drinking, I'm going to sign up for some treatment center, I'm going to go into AA and see what they got to offer. This was the last place I wanted to land in. Treatment wasn't even on my mind. The only thing I knew on June 23rd, 1988, when God surrendered me from the scrap heap, because we get surrendered, was I didn't want to die on that day. And that was my plea to God. I don't want to die. Take me from this. I don't want to die. I have no plans of landing in here or treatment or anything that I get to do today. I just don't want to die. And that was as honest as I may be for the rest of my life until God calls me home. There were no bargaining chips June 23rd, 1988. I wasn't getting sober for her. I wasn't getting sober for a job or for money or for reputation or anything. It was, I don't want to die. I wasn't even thinking about sobriety. I've shared this from a million podiums. What God will do to us, as He's done with me, whether we're out there or in AA, is bring us to the edge of our own cliff. For some of us, it's homelessness. For some of us, it's divorce. For some of us, it's a flat tire, whatever it might be. But it's the edge of our own cliff, and that's relative. For me, God brought me to being homeless, jobless, loss of family, in the same clothes for weeks, and not eating, and dying of alcoholism. And when my nails were dug in and there was nothing left, that's when I made the plea. And God gets our attention. God got my attention on June 23rd, 1988. There was nowhere else to go but back to you, who I despise, but please take me from this. There can be nothing between me and this power. A house divided against itself can't stand. I can't worship one thing and worship another. Can't do it. It's either I'm worshiping God or I'm not. I'm surrendering to my higher power. I'm not. Now, June 23rd, 19 came out of pain. The gift of desperation. The old time used to always tell me, the gift of desperation. That's what happened to me in June of 1988. In the back of a hallway in the Lower East Side, where, as Bill says, the courage to do battle was not there. And I begged God for help. And He took me from the hallway to my 7th and, God willing, last treatment center. Treatment number 7. It took me to wake up and listen to people who are passing on this message. I'll share this with you. In 6 treatment centers prior to number 7, on my own power, I managed 2 days of continuous sobriety. I had powerful desires not to drink after my 5th treatment center. Got drunk 2 days later. I went into treatment center, okay, I'm going to go to those AA meetings and would AMA or walk right out and get drunk within an hour. 6 treatment centers, 2 days of continuous sobriety. I learned firsthand that I don't have power or choice or control over the next drink. And I learned firsthand that I don't have power, choice, control over the next drink once it goes in. There's no such thing as choice for me. Choice didn't show up because I'm here a little while. Choice didn't show up because I walked into the sacred rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. In fact, what the 12 steps done have driven me further into step 1 rather than away from step 1. And the need for power because I'm powerless. In my brokenness, as I am now, 25 years later, still broken, searching, and trying to experience, God still gives me an abundance. But there was a long time I battled my own ego where I'm perfect, I'm okay, I can't be broken. I'm a child of God, I'm perfect. Yeah, I'm a child of God, broken. I've said this a million times. Alcoholics Anonymous is a room full of broken toys. Everyone here, I would assume if you're alky, has our own brokenness. And somehow with the touch of the Master's hands, we get put back together. And the very same folks like me who couldn't accomplish the ordinary things in life, like getting up and going to work, we get this message, we get to experience God, and we do the extraordinary with our life. Our life makes no sense. The spiritual life makes absolutely no sense. The thinking mind gets frustrated. The ego can't figure this out. How could this thing out there resurrect me? The mind and ego wants this on a spreadsheet. Let me figure this out. It's not going to happen, so I stop trying to figure God out. Just go to seek the experience with God. But a day shy or a day later of June 23rd, 1980, I wouldn't have been here. I went through treatment. They talked to me about the steps. They taught me about a lot of things in my treatment centers. I was not listening because there was still a reservation, a lurking notion that I can have one more little drinky poo and get away with it. Just one more little drink, just a couple of drinks, maybe drinks and a couple of pills, maybe a little of this, a little of that. And as long as that was going to go on, my mind was still in control, which means God was not going to get in, and I'm going to get drunk again. And all the while, God is chasing me and pursuing me and begging for a relationship with me. Go figure. As it is with everyone in this room, and I hate to sound pretentious, just the way it is, God's pursuing everyone in this room for a relationship. And if we have a relationship with God, then why not take it to the next level and experience more of this power called God, who gives so freely, in abundance. I love the effect produced by booze. Why do I limit the effect produced by God? When I was out there, just give me more booze. Give me, IV me Jack Daniels. When I pass out, hit me up and let's get it going. And I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I say, I have enough God for the night, I'm driving. Too much God, I got to drive. I go to so many meetings. Oh, they're talking about God in the big book again. Oh boy, it's one of those meetings. Yeah, it's one of those meetings. It's called an AA meeting. I run into so many folks who claim to be upstanding members of our sacred fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous. Many years sober. I'm a solid member of AA, but we don't bring the big book in here. Well, I'm not going to do it. I want to say, well, didn't Bill, Bob, and around the first 40 put our book together? Our founding members put the book together? Yes. So how could you claim to be an upstanding member if you're trashing the book? That means you're telling Bill and Bob and the first 40 and God, you're all wrong, I'm right. Because I'm sober 6,000 years, I know everything. Don't drink, go to meetings, God damn it, you'll be just like me, don't worry about it. You know, I don't want to. I don't want that. I don't want that. Had enough of that. Trust me, when I got here in June of '88, I couldn't tie my own shoes without calling 4 people. I couldn't figure this thing out. One of the things I have found out, and I speak for myself, is even with 25 years sober, I can't do life. I can't live life on life's terms. I can't do it. My big book, nowhere in my book does it say live life on life's terms. It says God's terms are simple and easy and open to all. Live life on God's terms. Then my life is none of my business. I'm out of my own way. I'm here to serve as a messenger of God. We're here to serve, not to be served. And whosoever last shall be first. I mean, it's just the way it goes. But it's a narrow road to experience God. The wide road is for everyone, it leads to destruction. The narrow road leads right to God. It's called the 12 steps. Can't screw around too much with that. I'm either all in or I'm not. But in June of 88 into 89, I didn't know anything. But I was searching, what do I do? And I was very dependent upon people, very dependent upon approval, very dependent upon everyone to make me feel okay. And I kept hitting roadblocks. And I will tell you, about 6 months into Alcoholics Anonymous, almost 6 months to the day, I was living in Minnesota. It was December 22nd, 1988. I was making meetings in Minnesota. Great meetings. But I would go home alone, and I didn't have a sponsor. I would call people. And I would tell you what I want you to hear and tell you what I want you to hear, and the rest I would keep to me. My mind was still driving me. My mind was still running the show. And December 22nd, 1988, I got really thirsty. I remember driving down. I had a rent-a-wreck I was driving. And I'm thinking I'm going to go get drunk because the pain of living this life sober is too great. I can't do this. This is sobriety. I got chatter of 1,000 voices going on. I'm split in 100 different directions. I'm in pain all the time. I can't sleep. When I do sleep, I can't wake up. I don't even want to go for a job anymore. I was suffering from untreated alcoholism. I looked like someone who was suffering from clinical depression, because that's what we look like. Thank the good Lord some doctor didn't come by and start prescribing stuff for me, because you definitely would have a different speaker here tonight. I said, I'm going to go to the liquor store and get drunk. And as I'm driving down this boulevard in Minnesota, I made a plea to this God. I'm in trouble again. Please take me from this again. And I got the idea, well, I'll go to the next bar. I'll go to the next bar. I'll call this guy Joe. I'll go to his house. And God kept delaying it till I got to this guy Joe's house, which was about an hour drive. I think a town called Cottage Grove in Minnesota. I knocked on his door. He let me in, and I unloaded. You know, newcomers, all right? You say hello, and that's the last thing you say for the next 2 hours. They just give you everything, right? And when I came up from air, he says, Peter, where are you with God in the 12 steps? And I says, well, when do you start the steps? And he says, when you stop throwing up, you're late.
Yes.
See, I wanted a hug. Let's talk about your feelings. He didn't do any of that. And he annoyed me. I didn't like him at that moment. I wanted something, but he gave me truth. And one thing I had to do on this path is never lie to an alcoholic. If I'm in the friend-making business before the life-saving business, I got it backwards, because I'll kill people. And my journey began. I didn't pick up a drink that day. I got Joe. He started helping me. By the time I came home, I found the sponsor when I got back to Brooklyn with about 11 months. And I approached this gentleman, this guy, Tony N. I asked him to sponsor me. He said, before I sponsor you, you've got to go home and read the first 164 pages of the big book. He said, when you complete the reading, I'll sponsor you. And that's what I did. I called him a few days later, and then we began. And we started from the cover and worked through the first 12 steps, first 164 pages of my book, and something happened to me that people noticed before I did. One of the greatest things that happened to me on this path at the beginning was I realized I haven't been thinking about drinking in a while. How did that happen? Because that's all I was consumed with. And so I'm one of those guys who continue to rework the steps over and over and over again, at least once a year. I love the effect produced by God. I don't like the effect produced by untreated alcoholism. During those 6 months of early sobriety, I was looking like a drunk without a drink. It was a great lesson. I couldn't see the lesson God was giving me. But alcoholism goes underground and resurfaces in other areas. It did with me. Food sprees and sex sprees and money sprees and fear sprees. And the thing a lot of us suffer from, even in here, is the thinking spree. We're always thinking. I'm always thinking. Stuff I got to think. I got to think this through. Let me think about it. And the mind is our God. We worship our mind rather than God. We think we're worshiping God. I thought I was worshiping God. I'm worshiping my own intellect. I'll figure this out. Is the worst thing a drunk can tell himself. So what happened? Spring, summertime, 1974. I'm hanging out on the corner. About 6 months prior, my mom committed suicide. My mom was a drunk and addicted to Valium. My mom had been through about 10 or 15 institutions. psych wards, all of it. And growing up as a little guy, I remember, hiding her pills and hiding the liquor and lying to my dad when he would come home. Mom would say, don't tell Dad that Mom was drinking or eating these pills, and just put them under your pillow, whatever I had to do, I did for her. And when my dad would say, was Mom drinking? Did she eat those little pills? I would, yes, no, I didn't know what to do to this guy. My dad, I was scared to death of growing up. He made Tony Soprano look like Tinkerbell, this type of guy he was. Scared to death of him. He would look me in the eye, and if I blinked, I was lying. Mom was sick and suffering. What do I do? And one morning we woke up, January 23rd, 1974, we woke up to the reality that Mom finally succeeded in eating enough pills and taking her own life. And my design for living was taken right out of my lap. I did not operate around this guy called Dad. I was scared to death of him. If he walked in a room back then, I'd bail out. I couldn't be around this guy. He was tough, fearless. He knew stuff. He answered quick, head up, shoulder square. And I wasn't like that. I was into sports and music and art. He found this a contradiction to his life. He thought I was weak and cowardly because I liked music and sports. And I had baseball heroes. He said, tell me, they're not going to pay your rent. I'm 8 and 9 and 10. So Mom vanishes when I'm about 14. I really didn't know where to go with this. I didn't know about grieving. We didn't have therapists back then. Between ages 8 and 10, I had this distant relative who was very inappropriate with me. I was, we'll call victim of sexual abuse from ages 8 to 10. Well, who do you tell when you're being threatened if you do? There was no one to talk to. I certainly wasn't going to talk to my dad. I couldn't go to my mom. By the time I was 13 or 14, and I'm questioning my own sexuality because I let a man touch me that way, I'm completely upside down. And spring, summertime, they would pass around a quart of beer. And I watched my friends being joyous, happy, and free, drinking beer. And so I drank a little bit. I forget about the warnings of my dad that the police might drive up. I just took a couple of pops off that quart. It went down, and nothing happened to me. It's not such a big deal. I took a few more, and I took a few more, and I experienced something that was indescribably wonderful. Bill talks about this. Indescribably wonderful. Beer, liquor, alcohol became a panacea for my ills. That night, as alcohol started to do it, it did. And I felt better about myself. All the pain was removed. I got taller. I got better looking. I turned into Al Pacino by midnight. This was a great thing. Alcohol was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. I was able to talk to the girls on the corner, roughhouse with the guys, not thinking about the loss of Mom, not the fear of Dad, nothing. I was okay with me. Bill says it best. I had arrived. I arrived. This was it. This is what I'm searching for. This allows me to get in there with you. I knew nothing about craving, knew nothing about obsession. Who knew about spiritual malady? All I know is I started drinking one night and everything got put back together again. I love the effect produced by alcohol. Guys, alcohol is not a problem. It worked. That's why I returned to it. Go to work, couple of pops. Get in the car, couple of pops. Meet a girl, couple of pops. Couple of pops. I need a drink. Get lathered up and I'm good. I can do stuff now. Where's the part? What are the only folks? I don't know if you're going to identify with this. We're all going out drinking. We're going to ABC nightclub. What do we do before we go drinking? Go to the liquor store and get drunk. Then we go drinking. Because I'm not walking into a club cold. I'm not walking into a bar cold. I'm getting juiced up, then I can walk in. I could be Al Pacino and everything's good. Right? I went home that night after my first drunk. I love the effect produced by alcohol, but there was something going on with me. I'm 14 years old, and I realized I had a panacea. I had something that I can get, and I can deal with the rest of the week now. And I think of 14-year-old kids now, even though they're more mature than I was at 14, they're still 14. And I think of a 14-year-old kid now, guy or a girl, having to need liquor to deal with the rest of the week. There's something really radically wrong with that whole scenario, but that's where I was. I had to bury the demons with alcohol. I had to bury my own fear with alcohol. This thinking mind had me as the last person in the world that anyone wants to do it. I just not measure up. I felt dirty on the inside. When I drink Colt 45 beer, I'm okay. So I returned to it, not knowing that the cravings intensified when I drink booze. There was no power, choice, and control right from the first drunk. When my friends called it a night, I went into instant sobriety. What do you mean? Let's keep it going. Remember, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Where are the after hours? Where are the bootleggers? Keep it going. And when I pass out, come to, we keep it going. That's alcoholism. That's the craving, the phenomenon called craving. There's such a thing as stop because I want to put a lid on it. And so the following Saturday rolled around, we got beer, and we drank again. And the following Saturday rolled around, we got beer, and we drank again. Then it became Friday and Saturday, then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and now I'm drinking. And I couldn't wait. Sitting in class and, today's Friday, we're going to drink. Forget everything that went on. Cut class and let's get it going. I look forward to the drink. Even though I was drinking in schoolyards and hanging on the corner, and back in Brooklyn in the day in New York, you had to have a corner and a crew that you belonged to. We had ours. This was called the Gang That Couldn't Shoot Street. I mean, this was bad. Rebels without a clue, we looked like. But we had a crew. It was my own little bar. You go down to your local bar, you can breathe again. Give me a drink. He knows what you want. You know everybody there. It's like home for you. Me, it was a street corner in a schoolyard. I start to experience consequences because of drinking. The consequences start to hurt my family. I had 2 younger brothers who looked up to me. My dad didn't have really many problems with me. My grandparents really didn't have any problems with me. There were high expectations on me. Being the firstborn in an Italian-American family, huge expectations. Pope or president, nothing less than that. Right? And I started to get some trouble. Fights, failing classes, coming home late. I had a curfew that went out the window. And then it started to get bad because I started to steal from my family. My 2 younger brothers who idolized me started to become afraid of me and then become embarrassed of me because I was capable of doing anything underneath the influence of alcohol. I'd be really quiet, get lit up, and then I'd become vengeful and nasty and steal. And I would come to in the morning with no money. I knew I needed drinking money that day. I took things that didn't belong to me, money and jewelry. And one morning I woke up and I was really needing a drink. And I'm young, but I'm needing a drink already. I'm drinking a handful of years. And my family moved from Brooklyn out to Staten Island, New York. And we thought the change of environment was going to be good for me. And it took me wherever I go. And I woke up one morning and discovered my dad's checkbook. And I had to brainstorm if I stole a check and forged his name, I could go down to the local store where they know him. They'll cash it. And I got drinking money. And I did that. Got away with it. So what do? Return. All right? All the dope fiends know that one. I did that for a little bit. Had ATM going. I knew nothing about checking statements. That stuff came back in the mail to my dad. Back then, he sent the whole check with the big rubber stamp on the back. He got this, and he came looking for me. This is not the type of guy you want looking for you, even when he's in a good mood. Right? And I was sitting in a car with this young lady on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, right by a place called the Southbridge Tower, near the Brooklyn Bridge. My dad drove up and jumped out of the car, and I tried to pull away, and I couldn't get the car going. And I told her, "That's my dad. You talk to him. I'm leaving," because I was a man's man back then. And my dad caught me. And I went up to my first treatment center. I did 28 days in treatment. Push-ups and sit-ups in a child dysfunctional family. Learned about the Gelnick chart and all these other fancy things, how alcohol's metabolized and all. By the time I got out of treatment, I needed a double. I headed my family more after treatment than on the way into treatment. And 28 days later, I had that same young lady meet me at the door. I said, "Honey, I'm coming home." You think I did a bid upstate somewhere. And she met me at the door, and I bring a jug, and I have to go to AA. And she brought a jug. I never went to AA because as soon as I drank, the allergy was back. The phenomenon craving was on me. The mental obsession never went away. I didn't remedy the spiritual malady. For years, growing up, for years, in and out of treatment. And my first few years in Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought that external conditions were going to be the remedy for an internal condition called alcoholism, and it is not. It's by the process of removal. The more that gets removed, what's left is what God created. No external condition is going to fix me. In fact, it's a liability. If I think he or she or it or that is going to fix me, I'm in for a rude awakening. We live in a world of impermanence. I live in a world of impermanence. Nothing stays forever. People die, relationships and jobs and money is made, money is lost. I can't put my life on that. But I can with one thing that's consistent and constant and pristine. It's called God. Never moves. And even 25 years later, I find out that God is still consistent, constant, and pristine and doesn't move. The only thing He does is look for me every day. Whether I pray or not, God is looking for me and God is looking for you. All I have to do is stop. How can I experience God? How can I meet God if I'm still playing God? A book says we're in the world to play the role God assigns. But for so long I assigned you a role, I assigned you a role, I assigned me a role, and I assigned God a role. I think that's okay, because I'm me, I'm special. Huh? How can I meet God? How can I experience God? How can I even pray to God if I'm playing God? What I'm really doing is worshiping me. When I get the new car and that's supposed to make me feel good, that's supposed to erase all my torment and all my bedevilments, what I'm doing is worshiping me. Look at me. When I get the job and spend money and show up and I feel good for a minute and I use that to remedy what's wrong with me, I'm worshiping me because I found two things. Because I've had money and I've had no money in AA. God's not involved with that. God's about getting the lost sheep, bringing them home. And if I'm to have money, it's to dispense it to other people who don't. But we can always dispense God. The way He gives freely, I'm supposed to give freely. That's why we give service in Alcoholics Anonymous. One drunk work with another. When we lose that, we don't have Alcoholics Anonymous. But we have to have something to transmit. A God message out of the Big Book, which gives us our 12 steps. And we live equally in all three sides of the triangle. Fellowship, recovery, and service. I got into my second treatment. I got caught stealing from my dad, got into my second, I got into my third treatment center, got into my fourth treatment center, and somewhere I got a job as a dock worker, a longshoreman in South Brooklyn. This is not the training ground for spiritual growth. I work with men who are fed up at sunrise. Right. Tough crowd. A lot of interesting characters in that business. A lot of people on the wrong side of the tracks indirectly involved in that business. And being a gangster was looked up to. Being a spiritual being, you looked upon as cowardly or some weird guy. There was no time for God here. This is where men meet. And God doesn't go where men are. I mean, that's where we learn. I don't know how to be a man. I don't know how to follow God. I know one thing. Give me a drink. I'll do anything. I had a job as a longshoreman that was literally, at the time, impossible to lose. You cannot get fired from this job. Back in its heyday, probably one of the most powerful unions in the country. I got fired. By my dad. My dad was a big deal. And he sat me down and he said, do not come back to work ever again. Not for the day, not for the week, ever again. And he threatened me if I did. So I got this wonderful job making lots of money, and I screwed that up. And I remember hitting the streets and living with friends and things like that, and bouncing around. As long as I had a jug, it was okay. And right around my fifth treatment center, my dad showed up again. Now, my dad has thrown me out a bunch of times and taken me back in. Has cursed me out and held me up. He was doing the very best he could to save his oldest son's life. He didn't have a manual on how to do this. And the last guy he was going to rely upon was God. His thing was, my son and I'll fix him. I brought that man, my alcoholism brought that man to a place of torment that one day he tried to take my life. And his line went like this: before the drug dealers kill you, I'll do it. That's where my alcoholism took him to. That's where alcoholism and drug addiction takes families to. That's why I can never get to a podium, and I speak for myself and say, don't drink and go to meetings. If I didn't drink today, I'm a winner. What about the wreckage on the way in here? Our ninth step in the Big Book talks about that. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing, Ma? The place is upside down. Looks okay to me. And we come into alcoholism. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. Relationships were severed, broken. People looked like they were involved in a drive-by shooting. My book says years of living with an alcoholic will make any child or wife neurotic. The whole family's become ill. were involved in a drive-by because of my alcoholism. Whether they did right or wrong doesn't make a difference. I am the drunk. Their defects may be glaring. Chances are my actions are responsible for what they're doing and how they're behaving. I come into Alcoholics Anonymous and I find out don't drink, go to meetings, doesn't pay the bill. They were completely leveled by my alcoholism. And that's where my dad was brought to. But around the 5th treatment center, he had an idea. He showed up one time and he said, listen, I'm going to get you an apartment. I'm going to set you up. And if you can prove to me that you're doing the right thing, I'll bring you back to work. So after my 5th treatment center, I had this little apartment set up. Color TV, clock radio, shoes in boxes, clothes in garment bags, food in a refrigerator, put some money on the table. I lasted 2 days. Discharged on a Saturday, drunk on a Monday. The first thing I did was to get some extra money because I knew I was going to drink. I took the brand new color television as soon as my dad drove away out and sold it in a town called Sunset Park, Brooklyn. I took the shoes and boxes, the clothes and bags, and I stopped paying rent, and I brought the Bowery into this place. And in a short time, I didn't have my job back, but I was full-blown drunk again. Unless I get to experience the power called God, I'm going to drink. Step 1 tells me I'm going to drink. Not that I can't drink. It tells me I'm doomed to drink. I will drink until I die, and I take people with me. I take my loved ones with me. They're involved in a drive-by. And my family was just as sick as I was, but they're not alcoholic. This is what alcoholism does. How arrogant of me to walk into a meeting and say, I didn't drink today and I'm a winner. It's great I didn't drink, but a winner? Let's think about that. Let's talk about it. How am I treating my loved ones? Marion always says you're as sober as you are at home. How's that look? How's it look when tax time comes? Do I have integrity in all areas of my life? Do I have a wife and a girlfriend, a husband and a couple of boyfriends? How's that looking? Is God the only thing that matters to me? I knew nothing about that back then. And so I got thrown out of this apartment after my 5th treatment center. And trust me, guys, I had all sorts of undesirables showing up at all hours of the night. I was borrowing money from people who wanted a little bit money each week back until you can pay off the whole thing. These are not nice people. I got into a lot of trouble with people like this, street people. My dad would bail me out of those kind of jackpots. I didn't care. What is the problem? Leave me alone. I played my mom's suicide to the hilt. I would walk into treatment, poor me. My mom committed suicide. I used every angle possible to win you over because I was going to hit you up for money or ask you for a favor because I knew I needed to drink. This was made abundantly clear to me. I can't make it without drinking. There was a time in my drinking career that I got into non-conference approved dry goods. I went on a run with that stuff. I walked away from it. I had the marks on my body to prove it. The detox was so horrific. After treatment center number 5, I never went back to that. But I could not get away from alcohol. Mr. Boston Blackberry Brandy was my God. I would do anything for a pint of Mr. Boston Blackberry Brandy. And if I had a panhandle by the Manhattan Bridge and people would spit at me or throw things at me or make things at me, I can eat that. Someone will throw a couple of dollars out the window. And if I get a jug, it's okay. I was willing to pay that price. I was willing to go to any lengths for a drink. Am I still willing to go to any lengths for God, for sobriety, to be of service, to help another drunk? Because we can get comfortable. I can get comfortable in Alcoholics Anonymous. I know everybody. Do a little speaking. I know where the coffee pot is. I know the new people. People applaud for you. I don't need to pray and meditate and do inventory. In fact, I don't even need a sponsor. I'm gold. Look at me. I got into my 6th treatment center and signed myself out after a day and a half. I couldn't take it. I couldn't sitting in treatment, thinking about drinking, and a day and a half later I signed myself out, and the counselors told me, Peter, don't leave, you're going to die. I didn't care. I went out and got drunk. Day and a half, walked out the door and got drunk. And that's when, the trapdoors have trapdoors, and our book talks about that incomprehensible demoralization. I thought I had it. I was just about to experience it, because after treatment number 6, I went to live in the street. And I would panhandle and sleep in hallways and abandoned buildings, wherever I can sleep, get drunk, find a girlfriend for the night. You know how that goes when you're drunk. She looks like Bo Derek. Next morning she looks like Bo Diddley, and I got to that jam. Only only alcoholics get that. You tell civilians, they go, oh my God. This is the coolest place. I can tell you about the most awful, terrible, god-awful things I've ever done, and you say, here's my number, give me a call. The neat thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is this. I've shared this a bunch of times. I just called my dentist the other day. I got to wait till the end of August to get in. Right? A little cleaning, checkup, end of August. Best he can do. I called an eye doctor. Again, about the third week in August. I can't get in to the third week in August. Call your hairdresser. Booked. Call your MD. Booked. Right? Call those people, the professionals. Booked. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, etc. Always got to wait. Call up a drunk tonight around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning and say, I'm in trouble. This is the answer. I'm on my way and I'm bringing a couple with me. Right? That's my Alcoholics Anonymous. Right? I wound up outside the Port Authority, and I had a moment of clarity. The flimsy reed that proves to be the loving and powerful hand of God. We get it. We get struck drunk. I mean, struck sober while we're blind drunk. It happened to me outside the Port Authority, and I cursed God. It was kind of as if I saw my family and my life and everything pass before me. And I hated what God had done to me that particular time. That particular day, I reflected on my life and I said, despise God, and every four-letter word I could think of to curse God. Short time later, I'm living in some Fleabag motel up above a nightclub, and there was a young lady who was keeping company with me. She was a barmaid. Why this woman would even be in the same area code with me, I don't know. But God has a way of working. And she would come up around 3, 4, 5 a.m., whatever it was from her shift. I wouldn't get out of bed. I'd just lay in bed. And she dropped her purse down one night, her pocketbook down, and got into bed, crashed out for the night. And I got up and went into her pocketbook to steal money, because I knew she made lots of money on tips. Instead, what I found was what was left of a bottle of Valium. I said, God really loves me. There is a God. And I ate the pills, and the reason why I ate all the pills because I wanted to die. I couldn't do it. The courage to do battle was not there. Bill talks about that. I couldn't do it. I'm 27, 28. I know I'm done. I'm a mistake. I can't do this thing called life. 25 years sober, I still don't try to live life on life's terms. I still can't do life. Life on God's terms, different story. What I became was an alcoholic of what we talk about, the hopeless variety. Park Avenue, Park Bench, same thing. An alcoholic who had given up on everything, including God. An alcoholic who was ugly in the grip of the grapes, and there I lay. That's what we become. It's not what God created. We become what we become as a result of alcoholism, as a result of the thinking mind, the predator being our God, and making decisions for us. We get to see and hear and act through this mind. All my perceptions and conceptions about life are coming from this thinking mind. And there I was, as a result of my thinking mind and my alcoholism, I was giving up on life. And when I ate the pills, I was actually, a quiet excitement overcame me that I'm going to go to sleep, I'm going to die, and I'm not going to wake up. What a great way to go. It's not going to be messy. I don't have to deal with this anymore. The struggle and the pain and the humiliation of keeping a drunk going. Everyone knew what I was. How to sneak around or borrow money for people who didn't know me, and just the whole game. It's over. And I got back into bed, and I never forget, I put my head on a pillow, and I just waited for it to hit. I knew this was it. I didn't even make a prayer, I just waited. I just want to go to sleep and get out. What happened to me was this. I had a moment of clarity. And I realized this is exactly how my mom went out. And beyond that, the belief systems we were given when my mom died went like this. Men are strong and women are weak. Women commit suicide, not men. Men are strong, especially the Marinelli men. I thought suicide was a gender issue. And when I got back into bed, I realized that it has nothing to do with you being a guy or a woman. There's no gender. It's just addiction. It's called alcoholism. And this is the route we look to go. And I knew it, and I didn't care at that point. God interrupted my death because I saw another day. How till this day, I don't know. But the amount I ate. But God kept interrupting my death. And it's interesting, on June 23rd, 1980, when I surrendered and I said, please take me from this, I don't want to die, what I got was, enough. I have other work for you to do. Small, quiet voice. It's what I'm hearing things. Enough, I have other work for you to do. I had the same clothes on for I don't know how long. Blood-stained soil pants. Construction boots with holes in them. It was June. It was up in New York. I had a turtleneck and a short black jacket. I was sweating and cold. I weighed about 130 pounds. I was passing blood when I shouldn't be passing blood. My eyes were black. My gums were bleeding. I looked like death. I'm not exaggerating. It's not an embellishment. It's how I looked. I felt worse. If I lived to be 100, I'd never be as old as the day I walked in this place. I was completely out of my mind on June 23rd, 1988, as you were the day you surrendered, because there's a different dialogue that's happening. We're not listening to the mind anymore. When we take direction, when we surrender to God, even in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're not listening to the mind. We're out of the mind. In fact, I pray everyone loses your mind on the way home and it never returns because you'd be doing great. We hear new people say, I'm up in my head. I'm thinking, then why do I return to this battlefield? It never gives me anything good, only lies. Fear-based, insecure, all coming from a mind. My mind and God can't live together unless I experience a complete emptying out, a purging, a metanoia to get a new renewal of the mind, a complete emptying out of me, experience the death of self before the physical death, and suddenly we're getting this renewal, or a God mind. The same drunk that sees, hears, and acts through this addicted mind, this alcoholic mind, this fear-based mind, gets to see things with a God mind. That's the only way I can recognize God in you. The only way I get to experience some gratitude for very little. Do I need a banquet to be grateful? Can I be grateful when my belly is empty? Do I need the job and the car and the relationship to be grateful? Or can I be grateful without money and no job and all alone? Can I be grateful being above ground, sucking air and sober and a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and I walk with my power called God? Huh? Because if I can be grateful for that, then every day is good. Too many attachments on what this journey is supposed to look like. Gratitude in action. What's that little, well, I just lost my job, I can't work with it. No, go work with people. I have no money. When I have money, I can work with people. How much money and things do we need? Just enough not to need God? There's a great leader, walked around in robe and slippers, didn't have a Cadillac, didn't have a cell phone, didn't have a computer, changed the planet. Forever. Just spoke to people. And He's given us this power, whatever your power is, has given us great power. Has given me great power. In Alcoholics Anonymous, because any drunk work with another drunk requires power. He's removed the problem. Step 10 tells that. He's removed the problem. He's taken it. We're not even thinking about it anymore. And what does He say? He has power to go work with another drunk. Go heal my children. Bring them back to me. That's what we do in AA. We bring God's children back to God. We're the sheep who've lost their way. Somebody's going to bring them back to the herd. And no one has sunk too low, has gone too far to come back. Because Lord knows I showed up June 23rd, a mess. Wreckage. Can you take me back? He didn't say, let me have an emergency business meeting to figure this out. Probably something like, I never gave up on you. That's my Alcoholics Anonymous. Sometimes you have, Rule 62, don't take ourselves too seriously. I see even a big book is taking themselves too seriously, like they wrote the book. Like Jesus come down and says, hey, you got any advice for me what to do with this? We can be worried theologians in here, take ourselves too seriously. Too many requirements on what a drunk's supposed to sound like his first 90 days. Go teach. We teach the way people taught me, because I didn't know how to tie my shoes when I got here. That's why I love the old timers. In their simplicity, they always taught. Big book or non-big book. They taught. And some of our new folks are lathered up with the big book, as they ought to be. But if you're not in the big book, we're going to cast judgment on you without mercy. How dare I do that? How we allow that in Alcoholics Anonymous. Before I take this speck out of your eye, take the beam out of mine first, huh? What Alcoholics Anonymous is about, what my book is about, what the 12 Steps is about, what God's about, is about taking this and serving others with open arms. If you don't want it, I'll move on to the next one. That's what they did with me, and I'm so grateful for that. Huh? I get into my 7th and last treatment center, and I show up in some serious trouble, and after about 10 days of being in there, you know what I wanted, right? It was a drink. I need a drink to go to group. Quick story. I've been in the treatment center business for almost all my sobriety. And there's really great things about it, and there's some things we need to fix. But when I was going through treatment, I remember they took us for physical fitness. A gymnasium the size of this room. Basketball court, and that side basketball on the other side. They gave us one basketball. And we were all detoxing. Physical fitness, get the endorphins popping, blood circulating, it'll help with the detox, and we're medicating. You had the crackheads, you had the junkies, you had the drunks, you had the pill heads, the pot, and we're all there, one basketball, go play. And this is a true story. And I'm sitting on the bleachers, and the basketball, somebody took a shot, and the ball bounced to the other side. And we all looked at it and went like this. I'm not getting it. You get it. The crackheads were going like this. I'll get the ball. Don't worry about it. The potheads did this. Wow. And so we went and smoked a cigarette and it never worked out. That's how treatment looked for me, But 10 days later, I'm romancing a drink. I still had duality going on. There was me and God out there. There was you and me, separate. I was separate from everything. I want to be landlord of my own community. I want to be landlord of my own kingdom. And the only people I would allow in were people who would stroke my ego. People who do what I said to do. People who made me feel good about myself. If you challenge me, you weren't allowed in my kingdom. We do that while we're sober. The non-big bookers will never walk into a big book meeting. The big bookers won't go into the don't drink, go to meetings meeting. They're not our kind. I want to be landlord of my own kingdom. God doesn't think like that. Love and tolerance of others is my code. Well, I wanted to drink after about 10 days, and they sent me out to Minnesota. And out there I heard some great information. In fact, I just come back from Minnesota. Been out there a whole bunch of times to give talks and visits, and I got to touch some of the old stomping grounds in my early sobriety. But they sent me to Minnesota, and I did 6 weeks of treatment, and I did the sober house routine. I was out there for about 11 months, and I was brought to a group called the Three Legacies meeting. At the time, I think it was in a town called Eden Prairie, and it numbered about 300 every Friday night. And the greeters were dressed in suits, men and women. And the speakers were dressed in suits, men and women. And they talked about the revolution they experienced as a result of the big book. They always announced who their sponsor was, who their home group was, etc. And I wanted what they had to offer. And I would stand by the doorway in a room bigger than this, be petrified. Stand in the back, be petrified. Stand on the side, be petrified. But I kept going back because I heard information I never heard about. Because these people stood there with dignity and grace, integrity, and talked about a God and the 12 steps. They started to get to know me. They knew I had nothing. They would take me to a diner. And they would order for me. They didn't question me if I had money or not. They knew I had no money. They knew I was in sobriety. They knew I was out of town. They knew I was hurting. They said, we got it. And they would take me around and take me to meetings. We'll pick you up. Don't worry about it. 2, 3 guys show up, take you to a meeting. We're going out to the meeting, a diner afterwards. And they stopped God Works 2 people, put me back together. My family still smarted from my injustice to them, and they were approaching me very cautiously. But God will bring us together when we're supposed to. My job is to chop wood and carry water, to do the work, plow the field, get the ground fertile, and God will do the growing. Doctor does the surgery, God does the healing. My job is to chop wood, carry water, and worship at the altar, and worship the people in here, worship Alcoholics Anonymous. And God will bring the players in when it's supposed to be. Not on my time, but His time. And I got invited home. And I realized then how I live now, same thing. I have a life of invitation. And I was brought to a group called the Free Spirit Group. My first teacher showed up, and I worked with this man for about 10 years. And Mark H. showed up, and he became my new sponsor, and I worked with him a whole bunch of years. I learned about reworking the steps, being current on amends. Any outstanding amends that I have tonight that I haven't made that I could be making, how come? If I'm not up to date on my amends, my life is not living current. I'm not current with my spiritual life. If I have a bunch of amends that I should be making, I'm not. The importance of prayer, meditation, the strict spiritual disciplines in steps 10 and 11. Narrow gate. Discipline, there's freedom. In doing this work, we succeed. Not getting an A+. It's just about doing the work, chopping wood, carrying water. God doesn't make too hard terms. Besides sobriety, the greatest gift I've gotten is being known, knowing that I'm known by my Creator. Knowing that I'm known by my Creator. There's no doubt. And that has given birth to, I know God loves you, and I know God loves you, and God has a mission for you, and God has a mission for you, and God has a journey for you 1 day or 20 years. We're all in the same water. 20 years, 30 years, 2 days. We're all in the same water. I might be the lifeguard, you're learning how to paddle. You'll be the lifeguard, and next one's going to learn how to paddle. But we got to keep each other up. This is it. We need to nurture it and bless it and treat it with the dignity and grace that AA gives me all the time, that AA gives you. Walk into me, and there it is. It's my Alcoholics Anonymous. It's your Alcoholics Anonymous, huh? That family that was splintered and leveled because of my addiction was put back together little by slowly. And this woman I call Mom, that was reconciled, fixed through a power of meditation. I got to connect some dots. And I put that to rest. As long as I'm driven by voices of the past, how could I be present now? Amends, resentments, fears need to get resolved so I can be present with you and listen to my Heavenly Father. These things, I don't even, some folks prepare great. I have no idea what I'm going to say until I open up my mouth, and I don't want to be involved in that. But my job is what I've been doing for the last few days. Been chopping wood, carrying water, accountability to a sponsor, working with others, all the things I get to do. And let that be a reflection, let this talk be a reflection of that. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. It's my home. And I thank you for listening. That's all I got.